a good looking group too. And I'm going to let everyone go ahead as we'll just go numerically through, unmute, share your picture in person if you want, and go from there. Starting with Lisa.
Good morning. I am Lisa Height from State Support Team Region 1. And if you're seeing my live picture up there, it's not intentionally purple. Sometimes that just happens to me when I'm Zooming with a large group. So welcome, and I'm happy to be with all of you today.
And I'm Kenny Seawright, Region 2 CTPD consultant for Lorain, Erie, and Huron counties. So glad to be on board with everybody today.
Good morning, everyone. Bob Ross, State Support Team Region 3. I am your Career Tech and Secondary Transition Consultant. Glad to have everyone here. And I might as well go ahead and introduce my colleague, Crystal Brisky, Dr. Brisky, who is not with us today, but she is representing State Support Team Region 4.
And then I'm Jody Glazer from Region 5, and I am the Career Tech Consultant for Mahoning, Trumbull, Columbiana, and Ashtabula counties.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ray Blevins. I'm the Career Tech Planning District Consultant for Region 6, based out of Wapakoneta, Ohio.
Morning, Julie Frankel representing Region 7, offices located in sunny Mansfield, Ohio.
Hi, I'm Stacia Kazchek, and I am the CTPD consultant serving Medina, Portage, and Summit counties. And I'm looking forward to today's meeting. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm Terrell Schwake, the CTPD consultant for SST Region 9, and we serve all the districts in Stark, Wayne, and Holmes counties. Thanks for being here today.
Good morning, Carrie Hunter, Region 10, the Dayton area. I'm the CTPD and Transition Consultant.
Alrighty, this apparently Cindy is not on. Cindy's a new member to our team. We welcome her. She's from Region 11, and Cindy Brill, and she's tag teaming with Radisha.
And I am Cindy Miller, and I am representing State Support Team for Region 12, which is Southeast Ohio.
And I believe Melissa Salazzo is also at the Dropout Recovery Conference. So she's from Region 13, and she is with us in spirit.
And I don't know if Mike is on. I haven't seen him yet. Mike is with Region 15. He's the Career Tech Consultant there. And I'm Melinda Johnston. I'm in Region 16 down in the southeast along the river. So welcome this morning.
Awesome. So there's your group of go-tos from at the state support teams. Now we jump down into the sunny Mansfield, as Julie would say, into the tropics of Columbus, and we have a few folks that are on. I believe Amy was joining us at 10 o'clock. However, we all know her. She probably needs no introduction in most of the audiences that are here. But Amy Szymanski, she's our fearless secondary transition workforce development consultant for the Office of Exceptional Children.
And good morning, everybody. I'm Chelsea Canterbury, the Perkins Special Populations Administrator in the Office of CTE. We have people all over the United States today, from New Orleans to Virginia. Some of us are in Columbus uneventfully, but I'm so excited for this meeting today, and I think you're all going to get so much out of it.
And then we have some additional people from the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. And I'm not sure if Carrie is on.
Again, everybody's on the road today. So we do have Carrie Calzo, who is our Ohio Transition Support Partnership Coordinator. Carrie works directly with opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities and those VR counselors who are able to support our students directly in schools. And then the fabulous Brenna Bartlett also supports the work of this team.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Chelsea, for tag teaming here. Now we have some really exciting panel here for us. We have from the Toledo, so that'd be the northwest corner of Ohio. We have a panel that's going to talk to us about their experiences and journey in UDL, which is the acronym for all of you who, like the acronym soup, is Universal Design for Learning. And we have a panel from up in the Toledo area. And I'm going to toss this off to Lisa. This is her team. She's worked with them very closely. I'm going to let her introduce and get us started with this first segment of the meeting today. Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, so good morning again, and I am very happy to have this panel this morning. So we have with us, at least I hope we do, because we've had a whole bunch of people join us this morning. Daphne Herford from the Toledo Public Schools. She is a visual art and design instructor. Lauren Helberg from Four County Career Center. She is a math instructor. And Morgan Weber from Four County Career Center is a math instructor. So the three of them, if they could unmute. Jody, if you want to take me to the next screen. So I really thought it would be good for us to look at the UDL framework and talk to some people who have implemented UDL, and this may be new to my panel as well, because the UDL framework was actually revised this summer. So in July, they came out with the UDL 3.0 framework. And for those of you who have been part of working with Universal Design for Learning in the past, you'll notice some differences. We're still looking at those three areas: multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, and multiple means of action and expression. But there's some differences that were added. So like some things that stand out to me just under engagement, we've added nurture, joy, and play. We've added foster belonging and community. And then even this last bucket here, design options for emotional capacity. Oh, just a minute. I'm sorry to do this, but I got to send Daphne the link. She just emailed. So let me hurry up and get her the link. Hopefully we can get her right on this Zoom in just a minute. So then, as you can see, this is actually on the link that we have for you here at the top, the UDL framework. This new iteration of the UDL guidelines responds to a strong call from the field, both practitioners and researchers alike, to address critical barriers rooted in biases and systems of exclusion. This new update aims to respond to this call and to work toward fulfilling the promise of the guidelines as a tool to guide the design of learning environments that more fully honor and value every learner. So if you have not seen this new version of the guidelines, I encourage you to take a look at those after our session. Again, this is live linked here for you, the UDL framework. When you go to that, up in the right corner, you'll see the green, purple, and blue. You'll click on that. And then every single one of these, we used to call these checkpoints. They are now referring to them as considerations. Every single one of these you can click on and it'll give you more information. So this framework itself is a good tool just to begin to understand more about UDL. Next slide, please. And your state support team, folks, most of us are what I think of as groupies of Universal Design for Learning. We do believe in the power of using the framework for quality, high quality instruction. But it's not just state support team that recognizes the value of Universal Design for Learning. A couple of years ago, National ACTE put out this document. It's not very clear here in the picture, but again, on the link, you will see it takes you to the document itself where they kind of go through how there has been not always the best situation. Students with disabilities are not always achieving as much as we would like to see them achieve in career tech education. It acknowledges that we have some work to do in doing a better job for students with disabilities in career tech education. And then one of the recommendations for improvement is that we look at using universal design for learning to help our students be more successful. So I just wanted to share that with you as well to help you understand. It's not just state support team. It's not just the Department of Education and Workforce. National ACTE is also recommending universal design for learning to support students with disabilities. And for our panel, so we have with us again, Daphne Herford from Toledo Public Schools, and she is now on the call. So I'm very happy to have her with us. Linked for your viewing pleasure later on, Daphne was featured in a UDL in 15 Minutes podcast, so you can watch her interview with Louis Lord Nelson. Lauren Helberg also has been interviewed for UDL in 15 Minutes, and hers is linked as well. And then Morgan Weber has been at a couple of different presentations that she has given at OCaliCon back when we were in person and had, thousands of people down in Columbus. Morgan was one of the presenters at OCaliCon. She's also presented before at our summer ACTE conference on universal design for learning. So I'm very pleased to have these three ladies with us. I think they each bring a different perspective to the table. We've got career tech, we have math, we have science, and I'm just going to ask about 7 different questions and have each of them answer those questions. They know to go in alphabetical order to answer them. So it's just kind of a panel. And then if you folks have questions for them, you can put that in the chat and we will keep track of that and ask them at the end. My first question is, how long have you been teaching and how long have you been using the UDL framework? So we'll start with Daphne.
Okay, unmuting myself. So I've been teaching for 24, 25 years, and I've been using officially the UDL framework since about 2020. I was looking back in my records.
I have been teaching, this is year 17 for me, all of which have been here at 4 County. And I don't know exactly how long I've been using UDL. Lisa started taking us several years ago. I'm guessing at least 10, but I know for sure it's 1 year less than Morgan. So we'll listen to Morgan's answer.
Hi, I'm Morgan Weber. I have been teaching for 23 years. All 23 years have been at 4 County, and we have been doing UDL for the last 12 to 13 years.
And in your own words, how would you define universal design for learning?
Okay, so simply put, I would say it's a way to create accommodations for students, but so that all students in your class can learn.
I would define UDL as finding something that works for one student and then sharing that with all of the students. So if it works for, maybe a student on an IEP, it may work for a non-IEP student. And that goes back and forth. So if it works for one, share it with all, and then all can use it.
I agree with the other 2 ladies. And then I also would maybe just add trying to take a look at the assignments or material that you have in your class and see where you are kind of dropping the ball, that you're expecting one thing, but asking for something different.
Okay, thank you. So for all of you, it's been a few years since you have started using UDL. What has made this a lasting practice for you, and why do you like universal design for learning?
Okay, so when I was going over these questions, I was thinking about it and looking back at the different lessons that we've explored as, in our training. And I decided that I like that the lessons can vary, but they're often used to catch student interest because again, they're fun and engaging, and it helps pull the kids, like they were talking about, the others in the panel were talking about. It helps to kind of like pull the kids back in, maybe when we're dropping the ball or when they're not quite clicking. And I also like that it not only gives me as the teacher choices, but it gives students choices. And I think that's powerful.
For me, I would say you see that success with the very first lesson that you switch, because you're switching it for or changing it for something in particular for maybe a certain student that you have that year, that you're trying to reach them or meet their need. And then you see that that's working for other kids too. So you see that success right away with the very first one that you change or modify. And that just kind of keeps that mindset in your mind of, you know, well, this worked for this one, so now where can I implement that same thing at other places and in other lessons throughout the school year. So again, you see that success right away, and that's the big benefit that keeps you doing it.
I would agree. And then I think one of the biggest things is once you start doing it, like Lauren said, it's just, you're like, oh, I did it here, it'll work here, it'll work here, and you can keep doing it. But having the students say to me, you're not like the teachers at my other school. I've never had a teacher like you teach like this. And that makes learning so much easier. I think we hear that all the time. Well, why didn't my other teachers teach like this? Why didn't it get explained like that? And when you hear that from the students, it just makes you feel great, and then it makes you want to do it more often in more of your lessons.
Can you give us an example of how one of your lessons was revised to add some of the UDL concepts?
Okay, so I have to go back to what they were both saying too. Lauren was saying it's a mindset, and then how she was saying it just changes your teaching, but yet it's not changing your teaching. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but it's one of those things that once you learn UDL, it just makes sense to incorporate it. So when I was thinking about like, how am I still using it? I'm using it, the concepts of it all the time, whether or not I'm recreating whole, projects or assignments. But one thing I thought about just even currently is now that AI is evolving, I started really tapping into the ChatGPT. So if some of you have not used that yet, it's amazing. And it made me go back to a lot of the resources that you get when you take a UDL training course, is just finding out what's out there to help the kids to make learning simplified, or to be able to make an assignment easier for kids. And ChatGPT is helping my kids. For those of you that are teaching high school, we use it to complete one of the seals, is a Ohio Means Job Learning seal. And it's difficult because there's a little blurb, but they're supposed to explain how each like they have to show how they have. So kids don't really know what to put there, but we type it into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT then helps them to get the answers that they need and then pull out the ones that that apply to them. So I don't know if I said that clearly, but if you go back and try that later, you will love ChatGPT.
So when Lisa posed this question, I was like, well, I was trying to think of how I do it. And I think it's because it's now so ingrained with the things that I'm creating that I didn't really think of it as, oh, I created something that was UDL. And so I actually have two, and I think you said I'm able to share my screen. And so here's the sharing is not turned on. Sorry. Okay.
Actually, Lauren, if it's those pictures that you sent me, I
Yeah.
do have those included. So
Yeah.
Jody, if you want to move forward
Oh.
through the pictures.
The one with
There we
the,
go.
oh, fantastic. They're all on one screen. Okay. So the one on the left there of the calculator. So we were doing some stuff with the graphing calculator, and this one was actually one of the first ones I think I UDLized. And the students were having problems navigating the calculator. They weren't that used to the graphing calculator. They were used to smaller calculators. And so I found a picture of the calculator, and then we got out our colored pencils, and you can see each of the different steps was now a different color. And then we drew lines and colored the circles on there, or the buttons on the calculator, to match those steps, to kind of help them flow from, well, now I need to do this, so I need to go here on the calculator. And then what I did in my classroom was I blew up a really large picture of that and had it laminated and put it on my dry erase board. And then I used the dry erase markers and I colored it with them. And so we did this activity blown up on the board. They did it in front of them on the paper with the colored pencils. And then actually while we were doing that, and I was sitting down with Lisa and we were doing UDLizing the activity, we came up with the yellow sticky note on the right. So some of this stuff doesn't have to be huge, extravagant lessons. I mean, we're talking a sticky note right here. And we kind of ran across the idea, well, what about for your more like tactile emotion related stuff for those sorts of learners? And so this was now something that I would do in front of the classroom with this same lesson when we were talking about the left bound and the right bound on the calculators. So that would appeal to those learners. The color would appeal to those learners. The writing down the steps would appeal to those learners. And so we would have all of that together. The one in the middle, that was my most recent thing, which I actually did just a week or two ago. And so I've switched to more of a financial algebra course, and the students tend to struggle determining when to use which of our 6 formulas that we've created for different savings situations. And they've always, not always said, but quite often like, well, it's so much easier, Mrs. Hellberg, when you do it. And I'm like, well, isn't that the truth about everything? But the fact was, I was just asking the questions that you can see there in that flow chart. And they needed to practice asking those questions. So I put together the flow chart to help them do that. And I just kind of set them out on the desk when we were doing an activity where they had to pick which formula they needed. And every once in a while I saw a kid grabbing it and then looking at it, and then, it made its way to their binder, and then I would set out more. And then throughout the day, I just kept getting out more because the students found it helpful. And then it got them into that mindset of, these are the questions I need to be asking myself. And again, you can see it's color coded, kind of tried to separate the stuff out. And one of the aspects of UDL is asking other teachers. So while we were doing this, it may have been on a PD day, but I turned to the science teacher next to me and said, hey, is this like easy to follow, and that sort of thing, and got some input that way. So that's another helpful aspect of UDL, is getting those different perspectives.
Thank you. And Morgan.
When we first started this, Lisa asked us to bring a lesson to share with our VOCs that we had. And so I brought this lesson in and I was like, look how awesome it is. I've got pictures and we're coloring and we're great. And one of the people that was working with me said, so what does the test look like? And I showed him the test. And one of the things that the person said is, so on the test, you're making them write an answer out. Where in the lesson do you have them write an answer out? So we were studying muscles. And on the test, I made them name the muscles, and they had to write it out. But never in the lesson did I have them write the muscle names out. So that was like the first thing that we did when we started UDL. And I was like, oh crap. It never even occurred to me. And then as we went through all of this, it changed so much. So when I teach my students muscles, I make them know around 50 muscles. mind you, we've already done bones before this, but I start the lesson by standing on top of my desk, handing the kids the list of muscles, and I point to the muscles as I'm standing on top of my desk. Number one, I have all of their attention. Number two, they are all able to see me, which is huge when you're trying to show stuff. And then as we go throughout the lesson, we're able to then practice those stuff. So I'm saying them, they're saying them, then we stand up and we're both pointing. So then they stand, they say, they point. And then 4 County purchased an anatomage table. So now we are able to go up to the anatomage table, look at them on a real human. I am able to take those images from an anatomage table and I am able to put them in Kahoot and put them in quizzes and put them in documents that they're able to access. They're all color coded. Just having somebody else, like Lauren said, be able to look and just give you feedback, I think is absolutely huge, so that you're able to see kind of from a different perspective, especially somebody who's not a teacher of your, like not a science teacher for me, or Lauren, not a math teacher, to be able to look and go, well, that doesn't make sense to me. To be able to have somebody else to be able to look at your lessons and find some of your shortcomings, and to be able to take those shortcomings as not as criticisms, but to be able to take those in and say, oh, well, I didn't even realize that I wasn't doing that, or I was doing that. That makes a huge difference, I think, for a teacher to be able to do that and then incorporate those into their classroom.
Thank you. When you were learning about universal design for learning, did you have any ahas or oh my's?
For me, and again, I think we've said it a couple of times in different ways, but it was just that this isn't just another thing that I'm going to learn about and then I'm going to set it to the side. And, that was a great, training, and it was fun while it lasted. It was that, like, I can actually use this. I can add this and then keep adding this, or like try it and then, put that one to the side because it didn't work as well, or modify it. So it just like that it fits in so seamlessly to what we already have to do, and that kind of what we're already doing. It just improves it.
I don't know if this is really a my aha, but it might be a Lisa aha. And maybe she knows what story I'm going to tell. It's one that she actually loves telling about me. And when I was in high school, 20 some years ago now, I took the ACT 3 times and I never finished a single section of the ACT. And that's because I was a slow reader, slow processor. It would just take me the whole time. I wouldn't get through all the questions. And so that score that I got on that ACT doesn't really reflect my full knowledge because I didn't get to answer all the questions. And so what UDL does is it gets you to think about, are you putting up barriers? So like if you're giving a timed test, that could be a barrier for a student who's a slower processor. I had no IEPs, nothing. So I was a typical learner. So there was no accommodation there for me. But I was just a slow processor. And so if you put up those barriers or put so many, restrictions on some of your projects where then the student can't fully show what they know, that is, restricting them sharing their knowledge of what they do know about something. So that could be a length of time. That could be, making them do it in PowerPoint instead of some other sort of thing, or, making them do it on a piece of paper as opposed to something that's, a little bit different and plays into their strengths a little bit better. So really thinking about, sometimes leaving those projects a little more open-ended to let the students do what they need to do, taking away a time constraint so that the student can have all the time they need to process something, to really show you what exactly they do know about those things. So it gets you, again, thinking about those different learners, especially if you were a fast processor and time wasn't an issue for you. For me, color, adding it to the lessons, that's not a big benefit to me as a learner, but to Lisa, having things in different colors helped her out dramatically. And so just having that conversation with her when we started with UDL, like now I just add everything into color because, it helps Lisa. So it might help one of my other students. Just taking away any barriers that would prevent them from learning something or showing what they know.
And that is one of my favorite stories. I still share it anytime I do training on UDL. Morgan.
I'm going to continue with what Lauren was talking about with the test taking, and then I'll share my aha moment. But one of the things that I still argue with some teachers at the school about is retaking tests. And one of the big reasons is one of the things Lisa had said is, you're allowed to retake your driver's test. You're allowed to retake a nursing test. You're allowed to, for a lot of things, you're allowed to retake those tests. And what if I say that you can't retake one of my tests? I'm saying that my tests are more important than that. And one of the things that I do say to my students is, I take away that, like Mrs. Weber, my mom was in the hospital and I didn't get to study, or I got called into work and I didn't get to study last night. Okay, we're going to take the test and you're going to be allowed to retake it at a different time if you need to. And taking away one of those stressors for those kids, I think is huge for them. And I still have teachers that go, no, they can't. But the kids love it. And they always redo stuff in my class. And so I think if you're not doing anything else, that needs to be one thing that you need to really stress with your staff, that may be something you want to incorporate. My aha moment was with Lisa. And over COVID, we had to come up with all these new lessons and this stuff. So online, we were doing the digestive system. I gave the kids the assignment and I said, I want you to give me a menu for 1 week. I need a breakfast item. I need a lunch item. I need supper items. What are you eating? Feel free to use all the tools. Give me different recipes that you're going to try, whatever. So I get these menus from my kids. And I'm going to admit that I gave a lot of kids a really bad grade on this assignment. I'm like, how hard is this? Give me stuff that you're going to eat for 3 meals a day for 7 days. This should not be that hard. And what I was getting was no breakfast, the same thing for lunch every day, and for the most part, the same thing for supper every single day. And I'm like, I know that, like, why are you giving me that stuff? And Lisa looked at me in the meeting that we were talking, and she's like, well, they probably are. And I'm like, no, nobody's eating the same thing every single day. And she's like, Morgan, what happens if that's all they can afford? What happens if that's all they have access to? That may be what they're actually eating. And as a parent, I'm going, well, I make my kids supper all the time. And Lisa goes, Morgan, most people don't make their kids supper all the time. Most parents aren't present to make their kids supper, and they don't have a lot of choices. And so it just was my, oh crap moment that I was just like, okay, so that may be what I was grading it wrong, and I was looking at it wrong, and I wasn't asking them for what I wanted, and they were giving me what they were doing, but it wasn't what I was looking for. I wanted them to try new things. I wanted them to give me variety, but I wasn't asking for that. And so that was a big one for me was, again, are you asking for what you're actually looking for? And taking in the kids' home lives into account when you're asking for that stuff.
Which is, I think, why the new revision, right, took place, is because many times their home life is impacting our classrooms, and we need to start thinking more about their home lives when we think about our classrooms. So that was a terrific aha moment for Morgan, and it led to a better situation for her students. So finding barriers, removing barriers, that is a big part of universal design for learning. I'm gonna, just to keep us short, I'm just gonna ask one more question. What advice would you give to someone who's interested in learning more about universal design for learning?
So, like I said earlier, it's definitely worth looking into. It's not something that you learn and then, you know, if you can find the time to fit it in while you're taking the training, it's like, wow, I can see where I can use this. And so then it just naturally fits in. And again, if anybody was like me, it's like, I don't have time to like do all these additional plans. Keep getting bumped out. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're back.
But so yeah, so it just makes sense. It is easy. If you try it, I think you'll like it. So that's my advice, to just like look into it.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think this goes along with what Daphne was saying of, I mean, you're starting small, just, you know, one thing that works for one. This actually happened the other day in class, and I have a student who's on the spectrum, and he oftentimes doesn't leave enough space, or like he writes too big compared to like how much space we're going to use on our guided notes. And I knew there was one notes question that he was just gonna like yell at me about. Not that he would yell at me, but he would make vocalizations about well, there's not enough space for that. And so all day in my head, I was thinking, how am I going to prevent him from, like, what am I going to say to go ahead of this? And then it dawned on me, like, well, why don't I give all the kids that heads up? Why am I only planning this just for, you know, him in that class period? And why don't I give all the kids the heads up that, you know, there's how to kind of space it out? And so it's really one of those things that you can, as you start thinking about the different learners, just slowly implement that. So the starting of small, and working your way through, and getting those different perspectives. I know we have a lot of people in this session, and from a lot of different backgrounds. So if you are in the, you know, administrative side or whatever, the key is really giving them that time to, you know, bounce the ideas off of somebody else. So if you recognize between what I was talking about and what Morgan was talking about, well, when I was talking to Lisa, well, that's because we were, you know, in a room, and we were all working on our different things, and we were taking the time to talk through what we were doing with somebody else. And so that's the key, is giving that time to have those conversations and get those different perspectives from those different staff members in your schools. And but yes, taking the time to just look at one aspect and trying to make it better is really the key.
I agree with Lauren. You really need administrative support to be able to do this, to have the time to be able to do this. But one of the things that I think that I didn't like to start, we started this UDL as a science department, and I wish we would have had a more diverse start, because like Lauren said, bouncing those ideas off of somebody who doesn't already know your material gives you way more insight than it does bouncing off like somebody who already knows what's going on in your class or already knows all of your material. Having those other people in the group and being able to share your things with them, I think makes you realize more of your pitfalls so that you can make those changes to make your lessons better.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies. Really, you are all fantastic educators. I am just so honored to know each one of you. I know you do fantastic things in your classroom, and I thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights about universal design for learning. Have a great day.
Thank you.
So if you are interested in UDL and you want to think a little bit more about UDL, you know, as you start to think about it, really think about in your building, what has been your level of implementation? Have you had training? Have you had whole school training? What has that training looked like? Have you worked with the state support team? Have you looked at the materials from CAST? They also provide training. Ocali has sessions that you can use. There are several books out there for book studies. Unlearning is a really quick and short one. Equity by Design is another fantastic book on universal design for learning. And then, are you sharing UDL Connections? So that is a newsletter put out by Ohio's UDL Collaborative. So all of those things, like training, high quality training is ongoing. It's job embedded. Just thinking about where have you been with this, or where can you get this started? And how can you support increasing universal design for learning in your buildings?
Awesome. Lisa and the ladies who presented that panel was very inciting. I think it's insightful. It didn't incite me to madness or anything like that, but I really do appreciate it. And I do like the new flair of the 3.0 in comparison to the 2, putting in an opportunity for us to build in and teach some of those executive functioning, and then to have the empathy. I think that's a great story about the empathy of where students are, and as an educator, meeting people where they're at. So we appreciate your time, and continue doing the great work. We expect to hear great things from those districts, and I hope a bunch of us will follow along and see what's going on there. So next on the agenda is the self-review tool for serving students with disabilities in a career tech setting. And I know that most of you on here are probably pretty familiar with that tool. If not, definitely reach out to some of the career tech folks that are on here, and well, we can definitely help you. So I think this is Lisa as well, northwest side of the state as well. Lisa, go ahead.
Yes, so I am extremely pleased to have with us today from Whitmer Career Tech Center, Tom Zeems and Becca Lee. They were very generous in saying that they absolutely would be happy to share their experience of completing the self-review tool and what that has done for their career tech programming at Whitmer Career Tech Center. So they have a presentation. It is live linked if you want to click on that for them. But Tom and Becca, you can take it away.
Hi, I'm Tom Zeems. I'm the Associate Principal and Administrator for Career Technology at Washington Local Schools and Whitmer Career and Technology Center.
And I am Becca Lee. I am the Career Tech Ed Support Specialist at Whitmer Career and Technology Center.
So thank you guys for having us today, and I'll do my best to just ask Jody to click through for us. Thanks, Jody. And we're ready to kind of start. So Lisa asked if we would take a look at our self-review. So the 4 kind of points that we want to hit on are why did we have to do a self-review? What was that process like for us? What are our next steps? And then what are some reflections we've had as we look back at the entire process? So we had a self-review. We were, as a district, part of Each Child on Track. And that's based on our graduation rate for students with disabilities receiving a regular diploma. And so as part of that, we wanted to shine a flashlight on our data and take a look and see where we could make an improvement. Like Jody said, most of you know this is the state support team tool to look specifically at career technical education. In our process, we really wanted to take a look at applications. In that process, we wanted to look at how are we recruiting students, and then what supports do we have in place for students with disabilities. We are a comprehensive high school. Our high school serves 2,200 students, and enrolled in our career tech program is around 615 right now. So that puts us right around 61% participation in career tech. So taking a look at our applications, I just really kind of wanted to give like the 10,000 foot view. The application year, so this is not the graduation year, but this is the application year. So in the application year 2022, we had 448 students that applied, and in that we had 306 students that were enrolled. During those applications, we still had an application process where all of our teachers were reviewing all of our applicants. They were taking a look at attendance and discipline and grades and credits, and the teacher was making a decision on that. In 2023, we went to a first come, first served application. We've done everything we can to remove all the barriers for our students. And so in that first year, we said, here's a Google form. That Google form is going to be made available at this exact time during our academic advisory period. And we just opened up the floodgates, and everyone had to type in all of their applications. The buzz was really great, but what we figured out was, hey, not everybody types at the same speed. And so we were creating a barrier in that way. Last year for our applications, we had 441 students that applied. We were able to enroll 326. So that's incoming students to our programs. Part of that is we did add a program this year. But what we thought about ahead of time, again, was, hey, let's open that application up. But we didn't allow students to submit. We had kind of a password in place for that Google form. And we said, hey, it's open. So now you can sit with your teacher and you can type and put in the information. It practically becomes a lottery for all of our program that are filled anyway, because everybody's hitting submit at the exact same time. What this generated for us was an issue now of having too many students try to use one Google form at a time. So we're constantly revamping. Next year, we're going to be looking at probably having a separate application for each program that then would have a second option for what would be my backup program if that first one happened to be full. You can go to the next slide for us, Jody. Thank you.
Hey, Tom. This is Shannon Sweet from
Yeah.
Southern. I just got a quick question. What school did, what do you do? What is your title?
So I'm the associate principal for career tech education.
There's no, but not just one specific, but overall.
Yeah. So I'm the administrator for all of our career tech for our comprehensive high school.
Okay. I missed that. I didn't hear it. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. So I did want to just look back for a second. What you're seeing on the left here was the notification for any student that applied in that 2022 year. So that first year, and that was the class of 2024. And I like to share this kind of brief anecdote. What you're looking at is a student that was not accepted to a particular program based on discipline. And so this was before my time in this role, and I just wanted to know more about it. So I just kind of went back and started peeking at applications. This particular student, when I looked, did have a number of discipline log entries in our system. And I looked back and there were some tardies and kind of some disrespect things that were loaded in there. Maybe a technology violation, which is essentially having your cell phone where you're not supposed to. And then I started to notice that all of those disciplinary infractions were from his junior high experience. He only had one high school issue, and that was, I think, 3 tardies in a row, which led to an after-school detention in his freshman year. And so that really, just kind of opened my eyes, and I try to share that we're restricting access for programs, so there's no reason to. Now with our application process, I do have kind of what I would call a flag for students, and that's based on credit. Are you on track to graduate, right? How am I going to carve out 2, 3, and sometimes 4 periods a day in your schedule if you don't have your math, English, science credits, social studies credits ready to go? And if that's the case, that just becomes a conversation with a counselor. And the ask of the student is that we have to have a plan for how we're going to graduate on time. Often, once we have that conversation with a student, I've had a handful of students that just say, you're right, I need to graduate. This isn't going to work for me. But again, that goes back to the student, the counselor, myself, and parents when necessary. Thanks, Jody. When we took a look at recruitment, I wanted to talk just kind of briefly about an activity that we did during the self-review. So we had an activity where essentially everybody that we pulled together on our team, we said, what events out there talk to career tech education? What do we do at Whitmer and Washington Local that talks about career tech, and how are we advertising? How are we trying to pull students in? And it was basically a 10-minute activity where we just had to write everything down individually. And then we compiled those by creating a physical representation in a graph using sticky notes. And what we found out was that we needed to do a better job of educating our faculty and our staff on what we have available and what career tech looks like. But then also our parents and our community. How are we doing getting out there? We often heard that we're the best kept secret, so we need to do a better job of telling that secret. We can go to the next slide, Jody.
Okay, so as we got into the self-review, these were sort of our goals in terms of supports. We wanted to look at how we were supporting students with disabilities within the classroom setting, especially in the CTE setting. How are we supporting them on web exams and state tests? How are we supporting them with industry recognized credentials and with work-based learning? So this was some of the activities we did throughout the CTE self-review process, helped us sort of assess this. How are we providing supports?
So the kind of steps for our process, first we had to build a team. And so I wanted to incorporate some of our career tech teachers. At the time, I wanted to look at what programs had our highest enrollment of students with disabilities. And I really wanted to pull in those teachers and ask, how are we supporting you? We also reached out to a general education teacher in our Whitmer building. We pulled in our curriculum director, our director of student services, one of our supervisors. And we talked through with Lisa kind of some different options we had with meetings. We chose to do those 3 full day meetings. And for us, that was just time that we could get together, focus on the questions of the day in our agenda, and then have time for that discussion. We didn't feel like, at least in our district, that breaking those up over multiple Zooms or hour-long meetings or even half-day sessions were going to work great for us. We were able to get that done. And then obviously planning meeting with Lisa between and our state support team in between our meetings, so that we could plan for what we're talking about and gathering data. We gathered data on the application information, our recruitment, our IEP reviews, and Becca's hopefully going to be able to talk to that. And then some of our professional development opportunities. Our meeting format, we wanted just a roundtable discussion. We wanted activities. And Lisa was great. This was not just a sit and get and listen for 8 hours a day. There was a lot of discussion and a lot of interaction. We can go to that. Yep, perfect. When we took a look at our application data, what we really wanted to see, not only our students with disabilities were kind of being underserved, but we noticed that we were underserving students with different backgrounds. So when we were looking specifically at ethnicity, we were off by 2, 3, 4, even up to like 5 and 6% in different categories. When we looked at previous enrollment, when we adjusted to that first come, first serve model, we got really, really close when we're looking at our overall enrollment. I wanted to compare our Whitmer students. So what you see on the right here is the ethnic background of all of our students at Whitmer. And on the left is the ethnicity of our students that applied for that class of 2025. And what you'll notice is where we were really off was really with our Black and our Hispanic students. You'll notice that our Hispanic population was within 0.2%. Our Black population there is within 0.9%, and our multiracial there was now within 0.7%. So we were able to get a lot closer in our alignment to where we were when we first started over to this application process. On the next tab, you'll see where we're looking at recruitment. And what we really wanted to know from our students that are in programs, when did you decide that you wanted to apply? I kind of have this hypothesis that maybe sophomore tours were kind of outdated for us. All of our students are on campus already, and so they get to see our programs. What we found out, though, is that 10th grade is really when they decide where they're going to head. And that culminating event of our tours really puts them on track for the program that they want to be in. We also noticed, right, in ninth grade was a decision for some of our students, and others it was still, junior high or early elementary. We also wanted to ask, was there any one event or any one particular reason that had our students apply for a program? Because again, we're trying to get better every day. 30% of our students knew that was the field they always wanted to be in, right? For whatever reason, when they were young, they kind of set their heart on it. But we still had 17% of our students because of a family member or a friend. I think we hear that a lot. And then we found, hey, 15% of our students are still really making that decision in that 10th grade tour. Maybe they're torn between one program or another. They have an opportunity to take a tour and they can make a decision for us. All right, our next slide. We asked our teachers when they are presenting or recruiting for their programs, are you explaining web exams? Are you talking about those? Are you talking about industry recognized credentials? And so that's adjusting some of our talks as we're going forward. Obviously, students are very interested in credentials and what can they do to be better in their field. But we want to do a better job of explaining how web exams are a pathway for graduation. And so we're going to start to work on that more as well. Thanks, Jody.
Okay, so we did some IEP reviews to sort of, again, try to make that connection of, draw some conclusions about how are we supporting our students with disabilities. So we gathered, well, first as a group during the self-review, we began by just reviewing definitions of Section 1 and Section 5 and the purpose of these in the IEP, since, not all of our participants were well versed in, IEP language and lingo. And then I shared some anecdotal data, which I'll have you look at here in a second. But basically, I took a sampling of 20 random students who were enrolled in programs who are on IEPs. And I looked to see if their Section 1, which is their future plans, and Section 5, which is their post-secondary and employment goals, transition goals for after high school, if those sections really aligned well with their current career tech program. I examined each IEP from the 9th, 10th, and if they had an 11th grade IEP, just to see if there were any changes as they aged. And then after this anecdotal activity, every member of our team was given a different set of student IEPs. Obviously, names and identifiers were redacted. So, and they looked on their own independently about how these sections within the IEP were worded. Did they feel that they were reflective of their career goals? Any other observations and surprises? So if you go to the next slide, you will see this is the data that I gave them. So I broke it down based upon the programs the students were enrolled in and based on what grade they were in. So for example, if you look at, and then I color coded and provided a key. So if you look at student A, for example, the student was enrolled in auto technologies. According to what I examined in Section 1 and 5 of the IEP in grade 9, there was no correlation to auto technologies as a future goal. By grade 10, there was, but then by the grade 11 IEP, it's interesting that they mention it as their interest in their career field, but not stated explicitly as their career goal. And so I did that for each individual student, and then sort of tried to tabulate some overall generalizations, which I put in the left-hand side. So 45% of those 9th graders' future plans did not align with their current program, which of course had us wondering, I wonder why that is. Is there something we're missing? 25% of the IEPs for 9th graders and 10th graders didn't mention the CTC as an option at all, despite that being a career goal. So for example, they might have said they wanted to be a nurse, but there was no mention that the student would explore like visit programs within the Career Tech Center. 30% of 10th graders' future plans didn't align with their program, so perhaps they said they wanted to be a nurse and they were in teaching professions. 25% did align, and 62%, this is good news, that by 11th grade, the future plans did align. But overall, I feel like this data did just give us sort of a glimpse into the IEP process within our district and some ways in which we could better inform, you know, what we're writing in the IEP and decisions we're making as an IEP team as it pertains to career tech ed and special education. So
Thanks, Becca. I know you have to step out. I appreciate
I
you
do.
joining me.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
Guys.
So for our next steps, obviously we're continuing our follow-up meetings with Lisa. We're reflecting on that data and continuing to gather new data, right? We want to know, how are we doing with recruitment? How are we doing with getting our students served? I think what we are kind of our focus right now is, how are we doing to support our students academically? And so we're reaching out to students that are in programs and doing our best to ask the question, like, do you feel like you have enough support? And I think, as we heard from our UDL presentation, the answer to that is never, right? But what can we be doing better to support our teachers and our students, especially those that have individualized plans? We're also looking really from a top-down in our entire district as a reflection on our student services and improvements that we can make. I'm going to give a little shout out. I see Chrissy's here today. Chrissy from 4 Counties is actually going to come join us in our district on Friday. She gave a remarkable presentation this summer at the Ohio ACTE, and just really kind of how does 4 County do special ed? I believe, Chrissy, tell me if I was wrong. I think your presentation was, you don't know what you don't know. And so that's really what we found out through this self-review process, is, if I'm being completely candid, is we found out that our general education teachers don't know how much our career tech education teachers do. We found out that we need to do a better job of connecting our case managers, our intervention specialists with our career tech teachers, and just start that dialogue and maybe help look at what that process looks like to support those students. We've been doing site visits. We've been in a few different comprehensive districts and around the state. We have our ED unit teacher that is starting a school business called School Sucks. This is a really exciting thing. Her students are starting to plant and grow succulents and hopefully get those out for sale. I love the school name, and I'm looking forward to help support that work. And for us, that's I'm going to use non-traditional in the wrong way here, but for us, that's going outside of our norm, right? So this teacher isn't necessarily a career technology teacher, but she's one that's going to work in some industry credentials, and maybe through some yellow belt, or we're even looking at maybe rise up. You know, how can we do some customer service things, and grow this business and bring in community members to help connect our students. We also need to present the summary of our self-review. I know we've done that for you folks here today, but haven't had a great opportunity to get in front of our district leadership and really show them what we took away. Next slide, please. Thank you. And as we look back, we always try to do, you're welcome, Chelsea, or Chrissy, sorry. We always try to look back, right, and see how we can do better. I wish we would have had more general education teachers in this process. We only had one, and I was trying to be economical with how we were using substitutes. I think everybody's kind of short on substitute teachers right now, but I wish we would have had more teachers involved in that. Again, just to share what we're doing and to see how we can connect better with them. And then I wish we would have brought in special education teachers. We had Becca there. Becca's a trained IS, but she's kind of on the other side right now, helping me organize things. And we had special education supervisors and directors, but having the teachers there, I think, would have been incredibly beneficial. And then the biggest thing for us is just that we have to share that secret, right? everybody here has a great idea of the great work that our career tech teachers do, connecting students with relevant education for their careers. But even in our district, where we've had our career tech building is celebrating 50 years this year of being open, doesn't mean everybody knows how we do it. And so just doing a better job of making sure everybody knows the opportunities that we can provide for students. So I just want to say thanks, Lisa, for having us today. And I'm happy to answer questions or go into more with you. Happy to if Lisa shares out our contact information and we can help everybody.
Are there any questions for Tom about the self-review and his processes?
I knew Jody was going to go back to that slide that was showing the data. That was really eye-opening when we took a look at our IEPs. Led to a lot of really great discussion. I think it was tedious work. I don't think it was terrible work for Becca when she went through and did this. It was really confusing to look at. I think she did a great job explaining it today. Just wow, right? Like where are our students at? How are we doing when we're connecting with those IEP meetings and getting students connected there? I see Daphne's got her hand up.
Go ahead and unmute, Daphne.
Yeah, sorry. Just wondering, so this is data that you just collected for this school year, or have you been implementing like changes yet? And what are those as far
So
as
this,
getting kids?
yep.
Right.
So this was data that we collected and looked at last school year. And so now our moves, like I said, we're really trying to, we're taking kind of a top-down approach. I really want to make sure that our directors and our central office staff are kind of aware, kind of where we're at, and to see if we can change our practices of how we're navigating our IEP meetings. I didn't want to bring in teachers right away and really kind of shed the light on that and make anybody feel like they've been doing anything wrong, right? Our goal here is to just do some improvement. So Chrissy's going to come and meet with our central office staff and talk with us kind of more about how are we doing special ed and are there things that we can do even better? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's just, I love that you presented this because I think that's a problem that we have in all districts. So I would be curious to kind of follow you as
Sure.
you make those changes too.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. And the application process is completely underway. We're constantly trying, I think everybody's always constantly trying to do a better job of recruitment, but for us right now, it's how are we supporting students better? Again, if I'm being completely candid, I was a career tech teacher. I started in kind of the math realm. So I was a normal classroom teacher and kind of made that transition into engineering. And I know how incredibly overworked both sides are with our special education teachers and our career tech teachers. But in our comprehensive high school, there's not a great connection there. I think that might happen a lot where maybe elective teachers or different things. And so again, how can we do a better job? So I'm asking that question at a higher level to see what we can do. Thanks, Daphne.
Hey, Tom, this is Terrell from SST9. I
Hello.
did have a question I threw in the chat. What have you guys started thinking about those graduation plans as well? So, and I know you're just looking at students with disabilities right now, and that's probably your focus of the review, but thinking about all kids, because I know Jody put in the chat, we're working a lot in our regions about right kids in the right programs for the right reasons, and then with the right support. So
Yep. So I promise Lisa's heard me say that a lot of times. So I'm not sure which meeting I was at with you guys, but I have the same exact thing. I want the right students in the right program for the right reason. And one of the parts that we've talked about, I'm going to digress for a second, but answer your question. Was how do students leave programs, right? And I don't think we ever want a student to leave a program, but if it's not the right fit, how do we do that? And in the past, I think students were told, no, you have to stay. Well, that creates an environment where you have a student now in a program where they don't want to be, and I don't want to create that tension for them or for the instructors. So maybe you tried it for a year and it wasn't for you. I don't know why I would want to make you stay, right? So that's always that conversation too. We have implemented, obviously, graduation plan is required. We have a really close relationship with our counselors. In fact, they've asked, hey, can you tell us more about C tags? We need to know more about C tags. So we're going to meet with them this Friday, actually, to talk about that and to talk about our IRCs. Our teachers, or I'm sorry, our counselors right now do use a Google spreadsheet for each student to track all the graduation requirements. I am, because we're comprehensive, pretty heavily involved in the question of, hey, Tom, how are these students, or how is this program doing with credentials? Is this student going to get their credentials right? And so we're trying to better organize that. Most of it is through Google. We have started to look at things like, and this is a really, really high level, but we've looked at things like school links and different grad trackers. Haven't found one that our district loves yet. But so right now it is the Google form. I know that creates a lot of work for our counselors. We are going to heavily look at success plans. That's where our district is lacking right now, is for those students that are at risk. We don't have a great process right now for having those success plans, and is it just an extension of our graduation plans is kind of the question. So does that kind of answer, Terrell?
Yeah, it does. And just so you know, there is the new ODEX tool that will do that tracking
Yes,
in EMIS,
yes,
but
yeah.
then you have to decide who's going to have the access to enter the data, right? And that's always the
correct.
question, is how many people are you going to have in your EMIS system?
Yeah, and we've talked about that in our each child on track meetings. And that's been the question that I think we're still trying to work on. Thank you.
So I just want to thank Tom and Becca for sharing with us. I tell them often, I love working with them because they do the work, right? We go in and they're willing to look at these things, kind of like he said, we shine these spotlights. It's not a hammer. We're shining spotlights to look at our data, and they've been able to see some, oh my, we need to fix that. And then they figure out ways to fix it. So they have really been fantastic to work with, because they really want to do the best job they can for the students that are in their career tech programming. So I thank them for sharing, and I look forward to continuing the work that we're doing together. Just as a reminder for those of you, the self-review does look at 4 sessions. We are looking at recruitment, enrollment, serving students with disabilities, like once they're there, how are they doing? And then that continuous education. How are we providing PD to support students doing better, right? Focusing on supporting students with disabilities. What kind of PD are we providing so that we continue to do a good job for not only all students, but specifically our students with disabilities who have traditionally in Ohio been one of our lower performing special populations. And so we need to realize that and strive to do a better job as a state of doing a better job of serving our students with disabilities. And Tom and Becca, they're really trying, they're rocking it, and I'm proud of them, and I am really happy to work with them.
Thank you, Lisa.
So you're welcome. As you think about, the self-review tool, if you have not been part of a self-review, please consider it. We are thinking about what data would you use to evaluate your recruitment? What data would you use to evaluate your enrollment? How do you know about the success of your students with disabilities? What data would you look at for that? And then, as Tom said, he had a pretty diverse team. But when he reflected back on that, he wished that he had more gen ed teachers. He wished that he had more intervention specialists. So, what is the benefit of having that diverse team to complete that self-review with you? All right.
Awesome. Lisa, thank you. You get 2 stars. You brought 2 rock stars to the group today. I really appreciate the Whitmers, honesty in their self-reflection and their willingness to share with us. And I really appreciate the way they've taken the approach of looking at this as a continuous improvement. There are opportunities for us to improve, that just because we're doing something, because that's the way we've done it. Maybe if it meets the needs of our students, it's worthy of changing. Adults can change as well. So I appreciate that. So, the pressure's on for the next group. But also a very catchy line here is looking at maximizing our middle school career tech programming in grades 7 through 12. And just kind of an overview, I know that probably most of you are aware that, right now in Ohio, if you're not providing middle school career tech programming, you need to do a waiver. But I'm really excited to listen to this group who maximized using their middle school career techs to provide some career awareness and exploration for students in those grades. So I believe this is Cindy Miller who's going to kick off this section.
Thanks, Jody. So if you want to go ahead and advance to the next slide. So like Jody said, we're going to now focus on middle school career tech. And so we're really looking at that middle band there, the career exploration for middle grades 6 through 8. And when you look down through the descriptors there, you see that's when students start planning for their future with career information and post-secondary education. They start thinking about their course selections and planning for grades 9 through 12 and that whole career planning at the high school level. So Jody, if you want to go ahead. So why would we want to introduce career tech at our middle schools? There's several different reasons. First of all, when I look down through that list, starting early is going to allow our students to enter their post-secondary plans more prepared. They're going to already have an idea. It's going to increase student engagement. It's going to provide students with greater opportunities and expand their vision for their future. And it's going to start to pique their interest for some of those in-demand jobs that we have out there. It's also going to create a cohesive career advising strategy that's available to all students. It's going to help with informed decision-making for students when they decide to enter into a career tech pathway. It's going to help determine student interest and needs for program growth. And it's going to help grow our understanding and interest in our CTE education programs in that 9 through 12 grade band. Some additional benefits, just like Jody said, since 2015, career tech is required in the middle schools. And if you're not providing that, you are filling out a waiver. We're also going to talk about there's some weighted funding at the middle school level for some career tech programs. Jody, go ahead. If you already have like career tech started at your middle school level, or if you're thinking about how could we start some career tech at the middle school, there's some considerations you need to take into account. The first one being around staffing and scheduling flexibility, around those business and industry partnerships, and then just doing what's best for students is the ultimate goal. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with those because our next presenter, they're going to share with us how they are maximizing career tech at their middle school. They are a traditional high school in Southeast Ohio, and we're going to have Joe Daniels. It's Maysville Local Schools. He's their assistant superintendent, and he's going to share the journey that Maysville's been on these last couple of years with their career tech programming. So Joe, I think Joe's Joe can share. Can they share Joe's screen, please?
Yes, he has screen share privileges, so go for it.
Second. Okay.
Welcome, Joe.
Hi there. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Good. Like Cindy said, I'm Joe Daniels. I'm the assistant superintendent at Maysville. And I'm going to be talking about middle school CTE. We're very new to this CTE world. We're in our second year of after creating high school pathways. But a little bit about myself. I was middle school principal for about 9 to 10 years before becoming the assistant superintendent. So the programming into the middle school is awesome. It's what is definitely needed to go even beyond your typical specials or elective classes you offer at the middle school. A little bit about Maysville. We're located south of Zanesville. We're a district about 1,750 students. We have over 400 open enrollment students. Our elementary has 850 students. Our middle school 460, and our high school is at 420. Our high school and middle school is one building. It's a 612 building. And our student population, we have roughly around 20% students with disabilities. Like Cindy went over earlier, the Career Connections piece. Years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, we noticed we have a lot of dots, but they weren't connected. We had a little bit of programming in the elementary. We had a CTE program in the middle school. At the high school, it was really college CCP focused. Graduation plans were started but not finished, and so forth. So we felt career pathways was definitely a direction we needed to go to connect the career awareness, the exploration, and the planning piece. Heavily focused now on those graduation plans, guiding the way for our students. Another piece that we talked about with our kids, when you looked, and it was, I've been doing this long enough. There was a big focus on college, getting kids ready for college. And when we found that less than 25% of our kids actually go to college at Maysville, even less than that actually finish a 4-year program. So we're graduating a lot of these kids. We felt like we were letting them down. So Career Pathways gave us a way to not only continue to focus on the CCP, but also provide credentialing. We'll talk a little bit more about that, the IRCs, for all graduates. So let's start talking about our journey. 2 years ago, we did a career interest survey, our 8th graders and our 9th graders, to see what careers they're interested in. Before we even started the pathways, we looked at the middle school, current middle school CTE course. And again, it was there, but not really well designed. We did purchase a program called through eDynamic Learning called Learning Blade. That has been really, it's an online platform, and it's been really good to focus, providing good activities for our students and teacher. We did have, back when I was middle school principal, we did have a STEM program through Project Lead the Way. And we have a beautiful makerspace. I think it's been there 3 or 4 years now. We converted our library into a makerspace, which is, if you have a chance to come down and see that, it's really one of the top, I think, in the area. So we had these STEM and makerspace programs, but again, they weren't aligned. And as you can see, we did start an engineering and design pathway, and STEM and makerspace was key to feeding into those programs. So we, in 2022-23, we began creating the first 4 career pathways at Maysville, and they were business administration services, engineering and design pathway, health information management pathway, and a visual design and imaging pathway. We learned all about CT 26s and applications. We had a lot of help with Tara Adranetto from Zane State, Katie Good, Jeremy Beardmore from our technical school. So they provided a lot of help. And we created what's called pathway slicks. Hopefully you can see this. All right. It is spinning. Can you see the Maysville High School career pathways?
Yes.
So one thing that they did is they created logos for every pathway. That was done by the kids and the teachers. So for example, the ag program, which was started a year after, we'll talk about that later, but this is the pathway for it. So it's just a little brochure type thing, information on what it is, the courses that we offer, the 4 main courses, the CTE courses and everything. So those were all created for every pathway. Those were real important. So we went into 8th grade classrooms and 9th grade classrooms to really tell the kids what this is all about. Because at Maysville, what we do is we have every kid, they need to pick a pathway. They choose one of the 4 at the time. All kids, special ed kids, college credit plus kids, they pick a pathway. So in 23-24, we implemented this last year our first career pathways, and what we had was the 4 main courses. Those were your VT classes, and we had some VM courses at the middle school. Of course, the redesigned CTE course and Makerspace and STEM. Makerspace, we did slide that over into 9th and 10th grade as well. Actually, Makerspace goes, we have some upper level Makerspace classes where they're doing a lot of the 3D printing and engraving and that kind of stuff for 11th and 12th graders. Last year, we had a lot of success. We created our first Maysville Business Advisory Committee, and we had about 20 to 25 members of local business members to join our advisory. And each pathway had student ambassadors that also attend the Business Advisory Committee, around about 5 to 6 students. And that was really neat to see the students interacting with the business leaders. So at the end of last year, we wanted to do more because kids had to make a tough decision on when they became freshmen, which pathway should we get into? And I was at the OACTE conference, and it was the ABCs of CTEs of career advising, and they talked about a lot of the middle level VM courses and the Promising Practices 1, which is what the electives, and the Promising Practice 2, which is looking at core classes. So we got our team together and our administration, and we really looked at that to see, can we give our kids an opportunity to learn more about our pathways and other careers before they even step foot in a high school? And again, it's important that when they become freshmen, they choose a career pathway. We do let them, after their freshman year, switch a pathway if they choose to. So going into this year, this is what we've added in 1 year. You had your 4 main VT courses. We added an early childhood education pathway, which is doing really well. We're hoping to kind of grow our own teachers. We partner a lot with Zane State, and this program's actually a lot of talk with OU Zanesville to offer some more college credits for kids that want to be teachers. We started our ag program, which kids are very excited about. We added a greenhouse this year to our campus, and we partnered with Mid-East Technical Center to start a J6 pathway, which is the exercise science, to offer VM courses. And if the kids would want to continue in that J6, they would go over to Mid-East. So this is where the big change is the VM. Like I said, we had the CTE and Makerspace and STEM. So now we tied physical education in grades 7 and 8 as VM courses that align to that J6 pathway. Our 8th grade, we teach 8th grade health for high school credit for all 8th graders. We align that to our J7 health pathway. Physical science is aligned to our engineering pathway. Biology, we go into, we tie that to our ag. And again, all these advanced conditioning, sport-specific courses that we have at the high school go to that J6 exercise science as well. Art and music ties to our visual design. And we even tied in ELA, grades 9 and 10, connected that with business. especially around the communication piece and the writing, persuasive writing, compare, contrast, public speaking, all that with business proposals. And the leader in me is leader in me can go with all pathways, to be honest with you, but we align that with the early childhood pathway. So as you can see, in 1 year, we added quite a bit. In this process, what we did, we met with our CTE high school pathway teachers, and we looked at those courses those VM courses that could align to their program, and we looked at the competencies. And they went through and said, boy, if these other classes can touch on these, it can enhance our program, or even down in the middle school can get kids to know a little bit more about what they're getting into when they join a pathway. Then we took what they found, and we met with all the elective teachers, the science teachers, ELA, and we went over all those competencies, and we basically aligned their standards with the competencies of those courses to see which ones can they really hit on in their classroom throughout the school year. We're very fortunate too. We have a TBT time every morning, about 30-40 minutes teachers have every day. And there are scheduled times between the CTE and these VM teachers as well, to make sure that that cross-curricular alignment continues. So as you can see, we increased in this school year, increased the number of VM courses. Our business advisory is now over 50+ members. It's it is the 2 best meetings of the year. It's very exciting, again, to see students interacting with business leaders in our community, and just hearing from those business leaders of what they need in the workforce, and more so than just the academic standards, but those soft skills that's needed as well. We're just jumping into work-based hours, and that has been a very challenging piece to get the kids to 250 hours. We're looking at some simulated work, and we do have some internships going on as well. This year is the first year we started our CTSO. A lot of the groups are doing Skills USA, and of course our AG's doing the FFA. So these next slides is just showing you on the left side, this is our ag program. These are the 4 VT courses, and this animal and plant science, high school biology, is the VM course, and which 2 classes that can feed into. Our business administration service pathway, again, on the left side, is the 4 VM course or VT courses. We're looking at fundamentals of business administration services at ELA 9 and 10. Again, to look at a lot of that communication skills, especially through writing. Early childhood, the VT, and that's that leader in me, is the VM where it connects. Engineering, this one here, on the left side is STEM that we've had in place, and Makerspace, and they really both feed nicely into that engineering design and engineering principles. And then when we continue even more with the physical science, tying that to how that connects to engineering. 8th grade middle school health. It's the health information technology. This parallel goes right into the VT class. I just know it is very important when you do this that you get all these EMIS codes right. That's very important to one, get approved, and also get the funding. Exercise science is our physical education 7 and 8. We have an advanced conditioning class that we started this year in 9th grade. And we also have sports specific, and actually grades 10 through 12. And that filters flows right into the J6 pathway. The art and communication primer. It is the music and art flows nicely into this visual design pathway. Those teachers were probably the most excited. They have a lot of great ideas, and they work. One of our visual design pathway teachers is also the high school art teacher. Well, actually, both of them. We have two of them. So that group really works. And this pathway is really taken off and doing some really neat things. So those are the VM courses and how they connect at Maysville. When you plan for the VM courses, teachers need to complete the middle school validation. What we did was I met with all those teachers that needed the validation, worked with the high school principal or 612 principal. We got substitute teachers for them, gave them a half a day so they can just go in and the learning management system and take the course, pass the test. I will say this, it does take a while to get your certification. It's been going on 3 weeks, and some of them still have not received their certification, which is important to upload into EMIS for funding purposes. If you're going to do any VM courses, you got to make sure you have a CT 26 in place that is aligned either at your school or with your CTPD. We did not have that J6, so we had to work with Mideast to be able to do that. And again, I can't emphasize this. Can't emphasize this more. Is that relationship between all these outside partners important? Jeremy Beardmore has helped out tremendously with us and our partners at Zane State as well. The benefits from VM is the informed decision making for students in the pathways. Again, they make that decision in 9th grade. We determine student interest and program growth. What can we do to make the programs better? This is available to all students. We're very proud of that. We're probably one of the first schools years ago to move the co-teaching model. We do have a continuum that we're very proud of for our special ed students at Maysville. Curriculum code and credit options are a local decision. No web exams is really nice, and CTE weighted funding. So here is example. This is the weighted funding weights. They're the ones that impact us is categories 1, 2, and 4. As you can see, category 1 is 0.623 of the weight. And that is a lot of your ag classes, your engineering, your health, and exercise science. That's where you get your most funding out of. Category 2 is 0.59, which is still pretty high. Business and visual design. And category 4 is where our CTE class and early childhood program goes in. It's only 0.21 of a weight. The CTE funding is very crucial. It's to run a CTE program of any category. To do it right, it takes equipment, and that's where that funding really comes in. I know we're going to be next year teaching robotics in our engineering pathway, and we need to buy a lot of those robotic arms, and they're like $5,000–6,000 a piece. So the whole classroom of that, the weighted funding is very crucial that you get that right. And the important thing there is getting your EMIS codes right. During our pathways too, we just keep adding to our IRCs for our kids. In our ag this year, kids will be able to get the remote pilot certification. We have drones now flying around the campus. Business, we do Rise Up for 12 points, the customer service and industry fundamentals. Kids can also get their Adobe certification in Illustrator and Photoshop. Early childhood right now, what we're doing is looking at a Parapro certification. Like I said earlier, we are working with Zane State and OUZ to hopefully knock out at least a year of college for kids that want to continue with a bachelor's degree in education. Engineering, we have Autodesk Inventor and Autodesk Fusion for a total of 8 IRCs. Health, we did start phlebotomy. That was last year. I think we had 7 or 8 kids that actually got certified, and I believe one or two is working at Genesis, which is a hospital in Zanesville. This year we started the patient care tech certification. Kids are very excited about that. We have bloodborne pathogens, blood control, and officiating. Sports officiating license also fits under the health pathway. The visual design, again, is kind of a double dip with business. We have the Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop, and of course, the credentials that go across all the pathways is Leader in Me 1 and 2. Leader in Me 1 actually is 2 of those courses. It's a point apiece, so they get 2 there. And Leader in Me 2 is courses 3 and 4, so they get a total of 4 points. CPR, driver's license, and we just started teaching OSHA 10 this year. I went through that really fast. I wanted to give time to open it up for any questions. Just open it up for any questions.
I was gonna say, if anybody wants to open up their mic, I'm Joe. I'm just like, my jaw is like still dropping. Like, you guys are doing great stuff at a very rapid fashion. Awesome.
Hey,
Thank
Joe,
you.
it's Terrell from SST9. I did have a question. One is about your TBTs. I loved what you said about integrating career tech with content teachers. It's so important. Is that at the high school level that they have TBTs daily, or just the middle school? Tell us a little bit more about that, your TBT time.
We've been doing, at the beginning, it was called PLT. We've been doing that for years. Even back when I was a teacher, I've been in district, I don't know, this is year 27, I believe. It's every morning for the whole district, elementary through the high school. I think it started out at 25 minutes to 30 minutes to where it's close to 40 minutes every day. A lot of co-teaching planning can take place in there. A lot of grade level intervention meetings, and so forth. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to get everyone together throughout the week.
Thanks.
Yes.
So we will put this slideshow on the Padlet, and his information's on there. So if you want to reach out to him, but as we reflect on the presentation, does your district or partnering districts offer CTE at the middle school level? If so, what is being offered? How is it being delivered? Is it an option for all students? If not, are there some next steps that you might want to consider to implement CT at the middle school level? So those are some things to think about as we reflect on Joe's presentation. And Joe, thanks so much. That was great.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Anytime.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. There's quite a bit there to think about. So if we look about here, I think, today, I think we've made a lot of these different connections as we've been through here. We touched on the self-review tool for how we're serving students within the career tech setting. How do we recruit them? How do we get them there? How do we service them once we have them in programming? Once again, even tying in, we talked about traditionally our students with disabilities are the students that are underperforming. So what are we doing to really change those outcomes for students? Of course, this all, ties right into the Perkins 5 as far as quality programs. So, I think the folks on this team meeting today have really kind of made these connections for us. So, thank you, everyone. I think this is you, Chelsea.
It is. Thank you so much, Jody. And thank you so much to Maysville for sharing that amazing work. It makes my heart happier than you could possibly know that we've got those opportunities for students. So a couple things that we have coming up that are going to be hosted by the department and our partners. First is I wanted to share that we're going to have a new Perkins Administrator workshop that focuses on state requirements on December 18th. That's going to be in Columbus. We'll be talking quite a bit about quality program review. We'll talk about CTSO involvement, but I'll have the opportunity in this workshop to also talk about serving students with disabilities. So it is a great opportunity for those new administrators in career tech to come and show up. We'll also have one about our regional systems of support in March. So highlighting all of the great work that these people do and how they can support you. The next thing I wanted to put on everyone's radar, hopefully you saw it in our last CTE newsletter, but we are coming up fast on this year's Equity Labs. We are hopeful that people will show up with a team from their career technical planning district for Equity Labs. We're going to have a chance this year to look at your own data. And in the morning, we will look at our population data, really answering the question, who are we serving? And then in the afternoon, after lunch, we'll have a chance to look at some of that performance data, answering that question, how well are we serving our students in special population groups? So all these links are in the slideshow on the chat or in the Padlet for you guys to sign up. Another thing I want to highlight is a lot of the people on this call have participated in either facilitating or training in our Establishing Families as Partners in the Secondary Transition Planning Process training series. It's an amazing opportunity for teams or individuals to come together to learn about some critical topics around engaging with our families as it pertains to planning for students with disabilities in exiting secondary education. So our first series has already started, which is a good news because it gives y'all some time to start gathering a team and figuring out who might be a partner with you in series 2 that starts in February. And we will have workshops and module series across all 4 Ohio regions. Super excited about the new platform this year because instead of being 7 in person, well, live online workshops, we've moved to a new format that gives people some more flexible time to do things asynchronously. So we don't always have to be together, but it's an awesome opportunity. And I highly encourage you to reach out to our It Starts With Families email box. We'll get you hooked up. The last thing I wanted to make sure that we shared is that if you do not know, the department hosts our Ohio School Counselor meetups. This year we're doing it about every other week. We know December gets crazy, so we took a little break in there. But so many different topics that are important for school counselors, but really are important for all teachers and administrators, especially in career technical education. Amazing opportunities and best practices that are highlighted in these meetups. It's a short hour. It's a great networking opportunity for sharing ideas. And there's always a lot of great follow-up and community opportunities. So I highly encourage you to check those out. And I'm kicking it over to Jody.
Perfect. So if those of you who maybe did not have the opportunity to attend the Ohio ACTE, there's a lot of moving and shaking going on, new websites, new opportunities. So there's one coming up in November 7th and 8th. It's Career Technical Education Professionals Conference. You can see those topics that are already on the agenda are probably on everyone's list of, things to consider. We have AI, cell phone policies, just that mindset of, students, staff, as well as how do we serve students with disabilities in that career tech education setting. Opportunities to write grants, as well as, once again, we saw some great things this afternoon or this morning with middle school programming. So if you want more of some of these topics, that's a great opportunity. And that registration is also open. Also, as far as different sessions that are going on, ACTE has work-based learning virtual meetups. They're the first Thursday of every month at 9 a.m. And there's some opportunities if you go to ACTE, there's opportunities to join. You can see that a lot of these are free, which is my favorite price, closely followed by discount, but you can see lots of free opportunities for folks to get involved. So, you know, if your leadership has not necessarily been overly involved in the activities going on within ACT, please take the opportunity, especially for some free information, free professional development opportunities to get involved in that. I right now going on in parts of the country is the dropout. I know that everyone is concerned with dropout recovery. How do we keep students in school? How do we get them diplomas? There's also in December another conference that's at a national level will be the National ACT Conference, Vision 2024, that is in San Antonio. So I know that some folks on this call are going to be going. I've heard of some career techs that are sending some teams. Just really, how do we expand? How do we continue the movement moving forward to where we're at? So that's opportunities coming up. If you need additional information, this will all be on the Padlet. It'll also all be within the opportunities on ACTE. Coming up is going to be a state Success Bound conference. It may or may not be called Success Bound, but I believe the good collaboration and networking opportunities will continue. You can see the tech prep regions. They're broke out throughout the state. And this is hot links so that folks can go to their tech prep regions. I know earlier that I saw some folks from our tech preps that were on there. Some great opportunities, some podcasts as well. Here we have locally, and I think that Chelsea also kind of touched base on this, but just in another viewpoint, CTE 26 workshops. So great time if you're thinking about potentially exploring career tech programming for your school, your middle school, or additional programming. There is virtual settings as well as the session, which is really more of a workshop. You go to these workshop sessions, you're pretty much going to walk out of that event having most of your CTE 26 application ready to go. Our next CTE statewide session is going to be February 19 of 2025. I cannot believe I'm saying that. There is the registration for folks who need to register. And then probably most importantly, you know, there's the link to the Padlet. I know that's been dropped in the chat a few times. So, you know, please use that, as well as, you know, scan this QR if you would. Let us know. We're like you, always looking at a continuous improvement mentality. Let us know where are our opportunities to improve. How can we help you service the students, service and provide professional feedback? Let us know what we can do. We can help train your staff, help you train your staff, help you share these messages out. So, all right, next thing on the agenda is some time to potentially get together with your other folks who are in your region, who are like-minded folks. And if I've done this right, you should see on the share that I'm going to open this up for breakout rooms for you folks who have the time to attend. Region 1, Region 3, 4, 5 are combined. I do know my math, but you know, I did drop down. Here's Region 2. Likewise, join those rooms. If some of you are not able to join those rooms and need some help, just come back to the waiting room and let me know and I will help you get there. But other than that, that is where we're at for the day. And if you need any assistance, like I said, stay on, head off to those breakout rooms. And, at the end of the day, please contact your folks to let us know what we can do to help you out. So I'm going to open those rooms.
Jody, I'm seeing that people are joining into rooms, but I don't see the room for me to join. Oh, never mind. I had to go down to all the unassigned. Sorry
Oh,
about
there you
that.
go. Yeah. Thanks, Lisa, because Bob had to leave, so I did these pretty quick. So there could have been a snafu. So thank you.
Yeah, so just to clarify that, if you're not sure what to do, just scroll down to the bottom when you open the breakout room screen and you'll have the opportunity to join the room for your region.
Amy and Chelsea, are you guys still in the main room?
I am.
Awesome. You know what? I'm going to jump into my region meeting. Can you hang out in here?
I actually have to leave. I've got to go catch my flight. I'm sorry, I can only stay
No.
till 11.
Jody,
Is
you're
Chelsea
good.
here?
Jody, I can stay in here. I'll monitor this and help people get to
I'm
rooms
so
if they need
sorry.
help.
Oh, no, Amy, you're good. Good to go. Teresa, you'll stay here? Awesome.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
All right.
you.
Good deal.
Guys,
Thanks,
great
Amy.
work.
Safe travels.
Yes, thanks.
Teresa, awesome. I'm just going to jump in there to be
Sure.
nosy to see what's going on in my region.
Sure.
I will be back. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. If anyone needs help getting into a room, just let me know.